Okay, so here we have question number 9 from October-November 2014, paper 4, variant 1, question about sequences, number patterns, and so on. They told us there are 4 diagrams that are shown above. The diagrams are used using white squares and shaded gray squares. Complete the columns in the table for diagram 4 and diagram N, the nth diagram. Okay, so let's look at this. Look at this here. Okay, so for diagram 1, okay, the number of white squares. Okay, the number of white squares, 12, then 20, then 28. It seems quite obvious that adding 8, that gives you 36. Okay, and for the number of grey squares, 0, 1, 4, you can see there's 9 here. 3 times 3, that's 9. Okay, the total number of squares, well, you see, you can just add these together. 12 plus 0, 20 plus 1, 28 plus 4, 36 plus 9, which is 45. Okay, now the nth term. Now for the first one, you can see it's going up by 8. Now, when something goes up by the same amount each time, or even goes down the same amount each time, it's got something to do with that thing's times table. Because the 8 here is going up by 8, so it's got something to do with the 8 times table, because the 8 times table increases in 8s, multiples of 8, right? Okay, so this got something to do with the 8 times table. So there's a plus there. So you've got 8 times n. It's got something to do with this. This will cause the terms to increase by 8 each time. However, the first term here is going to be 8. This is the multiples of 8, right? We want to start from 12. So, like the first multiple of 8 is 8, but this is 12, which is 4 more than 8. The second multiple of 8 is 16. This is 20, which is 4 more than 16. The third multiple of 8 is 24. This is 4 more than that. So each of these is going to be 4 more than the multiples of 8. So it's 8n plus 4. Check in case. Let's try the fourth term. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 4, 36. It works. Okay. The second sequence of gray squares, we can see even from the diagram, these are squares. Okay, there's a 2 by 2, a 3 by 3, a 1 by 1. The next one's going to be a 4 by 4. Okay, so it's going to be 16. Then you've got 5 by 5, which is 25, and so on. Okay, yes, so the number of gray squares we can see is going up in square numbers. Okay, you've got 0, 1, 4, 9. The next one's going to be 16, and so on. Okay, so we have an idea from that this is something to the square numbers. So we can see the first number, the first term is 0 squared. The second term is 1 squared. The third term is 2 squared. The fourth term is 9, which is 3 squared. Okay. Let me just continue here just so we can get the idea. So, for example, the fifth term is going to be 4 squared, 16. Right? And, for example, the 99th term is going to be 98 squared. It's always one less than it. So what have we done every time? You've taken the term, taken away 1 from it, and then squared it. So the first term is 1 minus 1, and then squared. The second term is 2 minus 1, and then squared. The third term is 3 minus 1, and then squared, and so on. So the nth term will be n minus 1, and then squared. Okay, so we've completed the table. The last one, they already gave us the nth term, and we know that it's going to be the sum of these two. So obviously, if when I expand this bracket and add n minus n, 8n plus 4, we should get something which then factorizes to give us this. Okay, that's obviously what's happened, but we don't have to worry about that right now because they gave us that nth term. So then it says work out the number of the diagram which has a total of 480 squares. Okay, the total number of squares is given by this as its nth term. That's the total number of squares. So I want to know when n plus 1 times n plus 5 is equal to 480. Now, common mistake. Many people think, n plus 1 equals 480 or n plus 5 equals 480. No, that only works when it says equals 0. Okay, there are many products which give us 480. Many products. Okay, infinite number of products. But if it said n plus 1 times n plus 5 equals 0, then yes, there is only one option, one of those has to be a 0. When you've got 0 as a product, the only way to get 0 is when one or more of those products must be 0. So we can't just use it in this form. We have to now expand, bring the 480 on this side together with it, and then try to factorize and then solve. So I'm going to expand these brackets. I'll have n times n, which is n squared, and n times 5, which is 5n, and 1 times n, which is 1n, and 1 times 5, which is 5. And that's equal to 480. So I end up with n squared plus 6n. And I'm going to have 5 minus 480, which is going to be negative 475. And that equals 0. Now I have to try to factorize this. And then I can try to solve the equation. Now I have n here, so I can just n squared here, 1n squared. So I can put it straight into two brackets. N times n is n squared. I know that the product is negative, so it has to have a positive and a negative in each of these brackets. Now I've got to find two numbers that multiply to give us 475, and the difference between them is 6. Now, this is something which is, not that difficult to do. We know that definitely n has to be a whole number, so it's not something that can't be solved. Okay, of course it can be solved, all right, but we have to think a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do here is as follows. I'm going to say, okay, I'll do it up here so we've got some space. Open up and back. There we are. Okay. Now, so I've got to find two numbers that multiply to give me minus 475. That's a product, and the sum is plus 6. So the difference between the numbers has to be 6. Now, how am I going to do this? Well, if you do get completely blank, I will show you a way to do it, and there's no problem with that. But I'll show you how to do it if you just think clearly. You'll get it. You know that the numbers, okay, one of them has to have a 5 at the end. Okay, the only way you get 5 as a product of numbers when one of them is a 5, ends with a 5. So you've got to think of different ways of getting 475. So of course there's 475 times 1, which doesn't work, of course. Like 475, if you divide it by 5, you get 95. 95 times 5. Of course that doesn't work. You look for a difference of 6. So try, for example, 475 divided by 15, say. That doesn't work. 475 divided by 25, that works. So you see, 25 times 19 gives you 475. And the difference between them is 6, you see? So I tried 5, I tried 15, I tried 25. Because I know that the number, one of them has to have a 5 at the end of it for me to get a 5 as a product. So when I tried 5, it didn't work. When I tried 15, it didn't work. When I tried 25, it did work. 47 divided by 25 gave us 19. So I know the two numbers must be 25 and 19, and my 25 must be the positive one. And my 19 must be the negative one. So end up with n plus 25, and n minus 19 equals 0. So either n plus 25 is 0, or n minus 19, n minus 19 is 0. Okay, of course, the answer now is either n equals minus negative 25 or n equals positive 19. Of course, it must be 19, because you can't have a negative 25th term. It starts from the first term and goes forwards. Okay, so as the 19th term is the one that has 480 squares, and you can check. You can say 19 plus 1 is 20 times, and 19 plus 5 is 24. If you multiply 20 by 24, you get 480, which is exactly right. Okay, so we can just check that we got the right answer. Okay, now as I said, if you were stuck as to how to solve this equation, okay, if you couldn't think, if your mind just went completely blank and you didn't know what to do, and in the exam and you have a calculator like this, which is allowed in the exam, you can just go to mode, you can go to equation, number 5, you can go to the one that looks like a quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, okay, which is number 3. Okay, and then you can put in the value of a, which is going to be the number in front of the squared term, which is the 1. And then you press equals. Then you put the number in front of the n term, the one without the squared, n. That's going to be a 6. Okay, you press equals. Then you put in the constant term, which is negative 475. Be careful about the negative sign. Press equals. And then when you press equals again, it gives you one solution, which is 19. When you press equals again, it gives you the other solution, which is negative 25. So it'll give you these solutions straight away. So what you can do is then we can work backwards. Okay, n minus 25. That means n plus 25 was 0. So one of the brackets was n plus 25. N equals 19. Okay, you press it again, you get the 19 and 20, my negative. So n equals 19. N minus 19 is 0, so the other bracket was n minus 19. You can work kind of backwards to make the examiner think you factorized. Okay, so if you do get blank and completely blank out in the exam and you don't know what to do, you can always resort to that at the end. Okay, which, as I said, I won't normally teach my students that except for just a few days before their exam. Okay, I'm going to continue with part C later on, and I'll add that to the videos. And thank you for watching.